Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It is time to see what's making the headlines with the Deputy Editor of ConservativeHome, Henry Hill, and the Daily Mirror columnist, Susie Boniface. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, Donald Trump's threat to impose 50% trade tariffs on goods from the European Union is top story in the Financial Times. Amid the growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, The Telegraph reveals that a Jewish protester was arrested by the Metropolitan Police for displaying a placard mocking a leader of the Hezbollah militant group. Labour backbench rebel MPs have warned Sir Keir Starmer to back down on planned benefit cuts or they'll resign. That's according to The Eye. Staying with Labour, the Mail says Deputy Leader Angela Raina is on the rampage, at odds with the PM and Chancellor over cuts and taxes, and with her supporters allegedly eyeing up her chances of taking over the leadership. And The Guardian reports that Labour's flagship plan to combat child poverty has been delayed at least until autumn, even though thousands more youngsters are on the verge of falling into poverty as a result. On to The Times, which details plans for new mental health accident and emergency units to relieve the strain on the NHS. An exclusive for Susie's paper, The Mirror, which speaks to James Middleton, brother of the Princess of Wales, who describes how Kate helped him through a difficult period of his life, suffering mental health problems. The Express claims an exclusive too, with news that Fergal Sharkey, the singer-turned-clean water campaigner, has been diagnosed with prostate cancer and is urging all men to get themselves tested. The Sun says that the reigning Miss England has quit the Miss World pageant after a dispute with the organisers. And finally, is it Donald Trump or is it Miss Piggy? The Star leads with a speech to students by Kermit the Frog, mocking the president's orange skin tone. We haven't sniggered one bit at that headline. So welcome, Henry Hill and Susie Boniface. Thank you very much for joining us. Let us start with The Eye. And the headline there, Labour rebels warn Starmer back down on disability benefit cuts or we resign from the front bench, an ultimatum issued to the Prime Minister. Susie.
Yeah, so this is apparently up to 150 MPs have signed letters saying they're opposed to the cuts, which include making sort of, I think it's 50% cut to the initial personal independence payment if you qualify for it. It's going to be half what it was, because apparently you're only half as disabled if you qualify tomorrow than if you did last year. And 5 of those, apparently, are members of the front bench. The Eye says it's their parliamentary private secretaries. Now, those are people who are not ministers. They are kind of a minister's bagman, if you like. They're an MP who is seconded to a minister, correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, no. And they're sort of their eyes and ears within the party, and they scuttle around doing their representative work on earth kind of thing, and then feed it back to the minister who's terribly busy doing other stuff. So they're not paid to be part of the government, they're not formally part of the government, but they are an integral kind of part of the political machinery, if you like. And if 5 of them are going to go, then it's not good, it's not brilliant, it's not awful, it's not the same as a minister going. And I would have thought some of those ministers on that front bench themselves would be a little bit concerned about some of those benefit cuts.
How worrying will this be for the Prime Minister, Henry? Well,
as Susie says, it's obviously never a good thing to be starting to shed members of your front bench, what, a year from a general election?
10 months.
10 months from a general election in which you won a historic landslide. But I think for Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, more than just this individual story, it's the fact that they've just got years of this to go, because the fiscal situation that the government is facing means that time after time after time, the Chancellor has to come back for more cuts. She has to look at more tax rises, despite having now promised twice that there weren't going to be any more tax rises. She has to delay more pledges. And so this row, he might win or lose this row, but there'll just be an endless series more, and his party is already running out of patience with the government's approach. That's not a good position for the Prime Minister to be in.
Susie, considering that there's likely to be a U-turn on the winter fuel allowance payments, might they back down? Might they blink first because the Prime Minister is seemingly travelling in the direction that they want him to?
Yeah. Look, when they... after the election last year, there was a huge number of fresh MPs who were very loyal to the Starmer project and to the machinery which had got them elected and everything else, and also were wet behind the ears, frankly, and who sort of did an awful lot of what, you know, the government wanted to do and voted through a lot of those early things to do with the fuel, winter fuel payment cut and things like that without really questioning it or rebelling too loud. One or two people did and got treated quite badly for it as a result. But, you know, like Henry said, we're now 10 months in. There's a number of things they've seen which are not what was on the side of the tin they thought they were part of. Although, you know, there wasn't an awful lot in the manifesto to start with. But there is more antsiness now in the parliamentary party than there was. They are far more inclined to kick off. The maths is still on Keir Starmer's side. He's got a massive majority. He can afford to have a massive rebellion and it won't affect his ability to get a law through. What it will affect is his ability to control and manage his party. And there was I'm going to credit Politico, which does a newsletter every day, and they did a brilliant metaphor for Keir Starmer's situation in their newsletter this afternoon, which is that someone's left him sat at the front of the DLR. And it's like, for anyone who's not in the London bubble, the Docklands Light Railway is an automated train. If you are lucky enough to get on in the front seat and no one else is there, you can pretend you're the driver, and it's fantastic fun. But it just made me think that Keir Starmer is sat in the front seat of this automatic train making choo-choo noises while it's being run from a control room by somebody else. And I just think even if that's not true...
Who's driving that metaphor?
Whoever's in the control room.
Is that Morgan McSween?
It would appear from some of the other stories that we're talking to, it may be some of the other members of the government, yeah. But it may not even be true, but if that's the way it starts to look, that your party isn't listening to you, that your policies aren't the ones that are going through, that other things are coming in to derail the stuff you want to say and do all the time, then he's going to run the risk of looking like he is just sat at the front of the DLR.
We know what you do in your spare time.
I love being in the front seat of the DLR, but I'm not running the country.
The Daily Mail, continuing the theme of the government not being united, their headline, Raina on the rampage, are saying that Angela Raina is at war with Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Henry?
Yeah. Deputy leader of the Labour Party, an elected position in its own right, so has a lot of autonomy from Starmer that you would not have from any equivalent minister in a Conservative government, head of the housing department. And the other day we had a leak about Raina proposing 6 new tax rises and 2 welfare cuts as a way of avoiding cost pressures on her department. Then today we had reports from the Daily Telegraph saying that she and Reeves are absolutely at head-to-head over social housing spending. This on the front page of the Mail, we don't have page 6, so we don't know exactly what the gritty detail is, but essentially it's pretty much the same row we were just discussing with the MPs. You have Labour politicians who were elected after 13 or 14 years of Conservative government, and they wanted to do Labour things, which normally involves spending money, and Reeves is saying there isn't any. And so, time and again, the government is locked in these brutal, grinding departmental struggles between the Treasury and everyone else. And because Reeves hasn't bitten the bullet and done some really big, deep cuts at the beginning to give herself some space, every single time she's gone as close to the wire as she can, that means every time her numbers prove to be off because something changes in the world, usually Trump-related, they have to go back and do the whole thing again. So it's destroying government morale.
Susie, the Mail alluding to the fact that Rachel Reeves is... sorry, not Rachel Reeves, Angela Raina's supporters are suggesting that she's got her sights on the leadership.
Well, there's been talk about that, just because as soon as ministers start arguing, that someone says that they're on manoeuvres. I think the same thing's been said about Wes Streeting as well. But it's definitely the case that papers love saying that more about arguments between women in government than they do if it's men in government. But this is one of those things that we were talking about. You know, who's in charge? The Treasury says we haven't got the money for it. The elected deputy leader of the Labour Party, who has got manifesto, one of the few ministers who has manifesto promises to fulfil, is saying, I need some money to actually do that. I cannot do that if you are cutting me like this. There has to come a point where the person who's in charge decides what's happening there and says to Treasury, no, give her the money, no, you're not getting the money, or whatever it might be. Where is he? He's at the front of the DLR making choo-choo noises, presumably. But that's what it, you know, you have to have that impression of leadership, even if you don't, even if it is a consensual cabinet government, the rest of it, you have to be the person in charge at some point.
Henry, we've got 1 minute to turn to The Guardian, where we read that Labour's child poverty strategy has been delayed until at least the autumn.
Yeah, so this is lifting the two-child cap on welfare, basically brought in under George Osborne. Means child benefit, you can only get child benefit for up to 2 children. Labour were elected wanting to get rid of it. Then they said there's no money. The difference between this row and the winter fuel payments row, because we were talking about it earlier, is that actually the two-child limit is quite popular with the public. So, and the winter fuel cuts were absolutely not. So I think that might be why it says here, Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's chief advisor, very much saying this is going to be very expensive and there won't be a political gain from this, whereas Labour MPs are saying this was in our manifesto.
OK. Henry and Susie, thank you very much for the moment. We're going to have more. Save it. We'll have more after the break. Coming up, we'll discuss the news that Trump is threatening 50% tariffs on the EU, as seen on the front of the Financial Times. There it is. Do stay with us.
Over there, to your left. There have been airstrikes every day. Hezbollah are very sensitive about us showing any pictures, and we're being hurried away right now. It felt akin to riding into some sort of Armageddon. Many other areas have been hit badly. There are shells coming in every few minutes. Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city, where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. It's trying to hit us. That's it. It got us then. There's a lot of action going on. A lot of hits coming in still. We were the first journalists and the only outsiders to reach the site of the attack several weeks after it happened.
We found from the missile.
It's very difficult to see what around here could be conceived of as a legitimate military target. Only about half a mile from the Turkish coast, a boat seriously overcrowded. This is one of the most severe viruses in the world. Clearly not had very much to eat at all, a lot of them extremely thin and very frail. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
The world's largest falls now down to a trickle in places.
I can't imagine how much plastic is lying at the bottom of this huge lake. Whoa! Getting up close and personal with a rhino.
This is what makes the job so fantastic.
20 clubs, 10 matches, 1 final day. It's Premier League Championship Sunday. Broadcasting and streaming live. The Champions League chase comes to an end. And Liverpool are crowned in front of the Anfield faithful. Premier League Championship Sunday. All starting at 11 a.m. Brought to you by Expedia.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Henry Hill and Susie Boniface. Let's take a look at the Daily Telegraph front page. And this curious story, a Jewish protester was arrested by the Metropolitan Police after he briefly held a placard satirising a Hezbollah terrorist leader. Was charges dropped on May the 10th, so a couple of weeks ago. Explain, Susie.
It's more than just curious. It appears to be quite astonishing. So, someone who was in a pro-Jewish counter-protest, facing off against a pro-Palestine protest, had a placard which had the leader of Hezbollah on it, a banned terrorist organisation, who had recently survived the Israeli attack using exploding beepers, and he had the words beep, beep, beep on it, which is mocking a terrorist, anyone would have thought. But he was not only arrested by police officers who searched his home looking for the placard, even when he said it wasn't his, and even though they said that they accused him that he may have offended Hezbollah, as though that was something anyone would care about, and then they managed to charge him, which involves a great deal of paperwork and checking, with an offence under the Public Order Act, and it went through the CPS. That had it for 8 months before they dropped the charges. Now, Hezbollah is a banned terrorist organisation. It is not a race. It is not an ethnicity. It is not a religion. Everyone who comes from the Lebanon and that area is not automatically a supporter of Hezbollah. You cannot offend Hezbollah any more than you can offend the IRA or the Nazis. And to say that you can arrest and charge someone for 8 months, I think shows that the Met and the CPS have got a massive problem working out the difference between Jewish and Arabic and supportive of the Israeli government's current policies in Gaza and Hezbollah and Hamas.
Just very quickly, Henry, Chris Philip, the Shadow Home Secretary, said it was an example of two-tier policing in action.
I think that's because there's an awful lot of often hateful and some pro-terrorist material in these marches. Now, the police do say that what they do is they collect the video footage and they go and arrest people afterwards. But what a lot of people see is a large group of hateful people on one side, well, a large group containing hateful people on one side, not having anything visually done to it, and then a small number of counter-protesters getting targeted by the police. It's not good for the appearance of justice.
Susie, take us to the FT and Donald Trump threatening more tariffs, this time against the EU of 50%, and this is whilst trade talks are ongoing with the
Yes. There are two ways of dealing with a bully. Number one is you may kiss up to him and you're a sycophant, which is what Keir Starmer tried and worked quite well, or you bully them right back, which is what China has done in its own trade talks with Trump, and again, that has worked quite well. The EU doesn't seem to know which of those to do. It doesn't want to suck up to Trump, and it also doesn't want to bully him, and therefore it's finding itself negotiating with Trump via Truth Social, and this is where he said, I'm going to raise tariffs against him because the talks aren't going in my favour. I mean, you could agree a deal with him, and he's gonna just tear it all up again tomorrow. So I don't know what the point of any of it is.
Some of the EU officials quoted as saying that they were blindsided because the US was treating them like friends again when they were talking, so lulled into a false sense of security, it seems.
Yeah, but the thing with this, and it's again the same caveat I have to put on every single time we talk about Trump, is you just don't know for sure. Is this a 4D chess move where the Americans were deliberately playing good cop, bad cop with themselves, or has Trump just blindsided his own team? Did his own team go there with a constructive brief, think they had some good talks, then turn on the television in the evening and hear that their president said it had all gone absolutely terribly and he was thinking about 50% tariffs? We don't know. It would be an absolutely seismic move for transatlantic trade. I mean, it would put the fright we had the other month into the shade in many ways. So I assume it probably won't happen, but remarkably, for a proposition this insane, that's as close as I can go.
It's a ploy by a bully, but it would knock almost 2% off Germany's GDP, which is an astonishing thing to do.
I was just going to say, 15 seconds on the front of the Star. It's not easy being orange. It's another Trump story.
This is outrageous. We've had a huge row about this.
One comment.
As if Kermit would compare Trump to Miss Piggy with Paramore.
Sorry. Susie and Henry, thank you very much for taking us through the papers. There'll be more time, Susie, to talk. Let's take a look at the weather for you now.